Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Imagine transforming your hard-earned money into long-lasting wealth through strategic real estate investments. Today, we dive into the journey of Sanjay Patel, founder of managing partner of Cascades Property Solutions. With a background in software engineering, product management, and data science, Sanjay transitioned into real estate to help investors achieve financial security and peace of mind. Cascade Property Solutions have invested in over 800 properties and 1.6 million square foot of retail space, with project values of over $300 million. Sanjay's disciplined strategic focuses on acquiring high-quality real estate investments and ensuring long-lasting growth for him and his investors and partners. Sanjay, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me on, Jake. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us about your transition from your successful career in software engineering to real estate. Can you share what motivated you to make that shift?
Well, so I did have a nice career as a software engineer. I was one for over 26, 27 years. But it was one of those things that I was getting a bit disillusioned, and I was getting tired of working for someone else. And my wife and I both started having a bit of a mind shift change in terms of, starting wanting to create passive income, wanting to secure our future. And as we started growing and learning more about a few different ways, like infinite banking and a few other things, we decided that the W-2 sort of needed to go away. Didn't want to work for someone else. We wanted to start moving towards having our money work for us instead of us working for the money, essentially. And so my wife is the one that actually got us into real estate.
Oh,
I
wow.
was still at the working at the W-2, and she started doing fix and flips in DC. We're located in Northern Virginia, just outside DC. And so did that for a few years. And then as we started looking to generate passive income, we looked at single family rentals and decided that didn't scale for what we wanted to do. We acquired a few, and it just wasn't progressing as fast as we'd wanted. So then started looking at commercial real estate, and what we did was we started passively investing in a number of deals, mainly in apartment complexes and shopping centers. And then as we were doing that, I knew that commercial real estate and was the main vehicle that we wanted to use to get out of the W-2. And then so we were probably on the verge of deciding that I leave when my job actually they gave me the opportunity to leave on my own. Euphemism for being laid off, right? So in essence, they paid me to leave, which was even better because I was probably a few months away from deciding to leave on my own. So, that was I did find another job right away. Better pay and less commute. So it was one of those, all right, I was thinking about leaving anyway. Do I take this job? And I don't like if I took the job, I felt like I would have been promising them a certain, I would have felt like I needed to stay there at least a certain amount of time. And I think my wife and I talked it over, and this is sort of what we call our burn the boats moment. It's like, no, this is it. We're going to go we're doing real estate full time now. and left software engineering behind. And then I started trying to educate myself a little more on what it took to be on the active side of commercial real estate and syndications. Uh, so I joined a couple of masterminds and things like that. And then in the past year and a half or so, we've been able to get about 140 doors as an active partner, in addition to all the doors that we have as passive. So that's and especially over the past year or so, I've been educating myself a lot more on capital raising. And so my wife is a former CPA. We didn't need two underwriters, and she's a lot better underwriter than I am anyway. So I decided, I'm the one that would sort of venture out and start looking into raising capital, and that's actually done well. That's how we got into our last deal. We got into a deal in Cincinnati that had 76 doors to it, and we're just coming up on the anniversary for 1 year anniversary for that acquisition. It's going great. We're actually doing right at pro forma, even with a few unexpected incidents and things like that. So, and in this environment, any distributions is probably good, but we've been able to stay with what we promised the investors. So we're really happy with how that investment's going.
That's awesome. It's definitely, I love like the power couple dynamic duo take.
Yeah.
That's how, me and my partner, you might as well call her my wife. We've been together for 10 years, but you know, like you said, your wife was in real estate first. Um, my wife wasn't. However, I had the grand vision, but she forced me to take the leap,
Mhm.
and like everything's been amazing since then. So thanks to our wives, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. That saying is definitely true. If a man wants to excel, there has to be a great and powerful woman behind him.
Behind
Because
them. Yeah.
in this case, she was in front of me and pulling me along. So
That's awesome. So Cascade Property Solutions have achieved, impressive growth, buying portfolios and managing those properties, and then the 1.6 million square foot of retail space. What key strategies have been like essential in achieving this success?
So the main thing I've been doing is every deal we've gotten into has come as a result of networking. It's because I've known people, and I've either known the realtors or I've known the other investors that have found properties and then asked me to come in. So if you want it's very true that commercial real estate is a team sport, essentially. And the best way to do that is to get out there, meet as many people as you can, join the better masterminds, because I know that I don't know everything about real estate, but I can find people that do know more than I do and have more experience. And I don't mind being the sort of dumbest guy in the room, because all that means is I'm going to be learning from everybody else that's there.
Yep.
And I'd rather be that than than not go out because I'm afraid to tell people and ask questions or something, because that's the only way you're going to learn. I mean, I have now, my wife and I have about 6, 7 years of experience in real estate. I mean, that's a decent amount of experience, but we've gone through one down cycle, which is the one that we're currently in. Right? So I still consider us a bit of a fledgling in real estate. So I try to learn as much as I can from folks that have more experience.
Yeah, I definitely totally agree with you there. It's like, you want to be surrounded by people that are much smarter than you, right?
Mhm.
That elevate your status, that bring you up,
Y-
that are on a higher frequency of vibration than you are. And I'm all about that because I do want to be the dumbest person in the room so I can learn the most from them.
Yeah.
Uh, and just become a better human being for myself, my partners, my business, my family, people around me, everything like that. Um, can you talk about, how your background in software engineering and as a data scientist, how's that influenced your leadership style in real estate at Cascade Property Solutions?
So I pretty much did every position you can imagine in terms of software engineering, from being a coder, software engineer, tech lead, engineering manager, product manager. So a lot of different types of things. And one of the things but as I moved over to real estate, we also actually had a big shift in our mindset. Uh, it- it's around the time that my wife and I started gaining more of a growth mindset and abundant. I s- r- right before I right before we started doing commercial real estate is when I got into Tony Robbins and a few other and going to those events and sort of and that really changed how I looked at and uh, how I presented myself, but also how I looked at the world. And just having an abundant mindset that um, and realizing that, you know, me being able to help others, that'll just come back. The biggest thing is, and that showed in how we were able to get our first property, actually. Uh, Mita had, my wife Mita had met another investor at one of the at a conference. I wasn't able to go there, but she went. And a few weeks later, they asked her to help with the underwriting. And it was one of those things where we weren't really looking to get into the property, but we were like, all right, you underwrite this, you'll be able to compare it to. And the person that did it is very experienced in real estate. And then they invited us to do the due diligence and stuff. It's like it'll be a great experience, right? We will understand how to do due diligence, and once that happened, they actually invited us to become a general partner. They're like, well, you help with the underwriting, you help with the acquisition, so and that's how we got our first partnership and our first GP position. We went into it not even thinking that we were going to be. We just wanted to get the experience. But if you provide value, and if you show others that you're willing to work, it comes back, and it comes back to you multifold. So
Yeah, that's what do they call it? Law of reciprocity, the law of
yep,
attraction. Go forth with a serving heart, serve others, give, 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 and the world, the universe will, give you returns tenfold.
exactly.
So,
And that's essentially what I've gone forward. In fact, what I do with my partners now is we actually organize one or two webinars per month, just to educate potential investors, and because one of my pet peeves is how woefully how woeful financial education is in
Mhm.
the U.S. Everybody's taught, well, save enough, get a 401k, and hopefully when you retire, that nest egg is enough for you to live on. Well, guess what? You can, if you're doing a W-2, you're never going to save enough to have a good lifestyle after, or an equivalent lifestyle that you
Right.
did while you were working. Just because that money has been sitting there, and now you're depleting it instead of it working for you, putting
Yep.
it into investments that are gaining you returns, and as opposed to it just sitting there losing value every year, and it's been amplified over the past couple of years. Every dollar you have loses some value because of inflation, whether it's 3%, 8%. 7%, depending on the rate, every dollar you have is worth less next year than it is today, unless it's out there working for you and bringing back more money. So that's the only way that you can truly get a good lifestyle when you decide to retire, is to have your investments out there and having that return come back to you. And it's also the only way that you can get generational wealth to help out, because everybody wants to leave something better for their kids than they had themselves. So if you truly want to do that, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it.
For sure. I totally preach that all the time when I talk to potential investors, potential clients, just everybody that I, you know, love, truly love, because it's
Yeah.
like, the 401k wasn't it was made back then to work for the current economy, current style of living, current cost of living. Now it doesn't work no more, right? Now it's just a bank
Well,
account, future bank account for the IRS. That's all it is, right?
yeah.
Because if you think you're going to save your way and invest in a 401k and then retire and live the same lifestyle standards that you do, impossible. Unless I don't know, hit it big on a penny stock or something like that. I don't know, but for the ordinary person, for the middle class, that's not happening. Just because we don't know what tax bracket the taxes are gonna be later, and also the inflation, the cost of goods, services, cost of living, everything is going up so drastically. Um, and it's like, I think it's like right now, it's like to be having a comfortable retirement, it's something like $1 million to $1.5 million per person based on life expectancy or something like that. And I can tell you
Well,
probably 80% of Americans don't have that.
yeah, and it's very hard to save that million, because if you, the other part of that is setting up your finances properly. And that was one of the things that, because we totally bought into the whole 401k, save retirement funds. And 7 years ago, we started switching our finances. I don't know if you've heard of infinite banking, but
Yep.
essentially we've started doing a lot of infinite banking concepts, which involves either whole life or IULs as a money vault. But and as we've done that, even if we had just followed those concepts while I was doing my W-2, we would have been so much better off. It's really learning how to um, adjust and set up your personal finances in a way that every dollar you bring in goes out and starts working for you. And instead of you spending your paycheck or your returns from an like your returns from an active investment, that money goes into other investments, and then the passive income that you generate, that's what you live on. And so what that does is it gets every dollar out there. And if you follow, if you have insurance policies or something else, you can actually get each dollar working in multiple places, so that every dollar you bring in could be working in 4, 5, 6, 7 different places, and still earning you money.
Right.
And you're living off of that money that your dollars are working for. So, and that's really the main concept behind infinite banking.
Yeah, and I think infinite banking is one of the most obtainable financial vehicles for everybody out there
Yeah,
that don't have access to maybe a fund or a syndication that's only for accredited investors or
yeah,
institutional assets. And it's probably the best way to um, transition generational wealth to future generations.
exactly. And the great part of that is, once you set up those policies, then you can start drawing money from those policies and do other investments, like passive investments into syndications, or if you or active investments into syndications as well. Because as long as you have those policies designed properly, they're a great way of storing and growing money. And that actually would mean that your money is now growing in your policy as well as in an investment somewhere.
Yep, double dipping on the return.
Exactly.
And that's an amazing vehicle for sure. Your firm emphasizes on making real estate investing accessible to everyone. Can you share an example of how your innovative approach has benefited your investors?
Well, essentially, what we'd like to do is, because there's a lot of people with retirement funds out there, we will educate a lot of our investors on how they can turn those into self-directed retirement funds and still invest in real estate. Because outside of the retirement funds, a lot of them don't have the ready cash to do it. But
Mhm.
if you look at what they're doing inside, what that does, it helps to diversify. Because right now, if you stick with a regular 401k, most of the almost all your money ends up in the stock market or in mutual funds or something like that, right? And this at least will allow them to diversify some and take the money that they've already saved and put it into another vehicle that that's a lot, that's actually a lot more recession proof and things like that than the stock market. So the other part about that is the stock market, nobody can time the stock market.
Right.
Um, as evidenced by a couple of years ago, you had that big drop. What everybody that everybody's 401ks lost what 20-25% value overnight or over a couple of months. What the people that were planning to retire that year, they couldn't,
Nope.
or if they did, they ended up it totally screwed up their plans because now they couldn't live to the same lifestyle that they expected they were going to.
Right.
Whereas if you have it diversified in real estate and other investments like that, then at least you wouldn't have had that drastic drop. But also in real estate, it's it's returning. If it's a good project, then it's returning 17 to 20% IRR annually, right? And uh, so you end up with a very good return on that as well. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. And in investing in income producing assets for sure
yeah.
is super important as well. Can you talk about how you approach, financial planning to ensure stability and growth? And also, what's your thoughts on having multiple income streams?
Well, as we were talking about with the infinite banking, definitely want multiple income streams. We've been doing uh, multiple projects. I'm also one of my initiatives is actually looking into assisted living, so we can diversify into that as well. And that's actually essentially multifamily with another business on top, right? And but with our infinite banking, each policy that we have is essentially another income stream for us because the way we set up the policies is um, we invest in them, and then over time we can start drawing passive income out of them and use that for either living expenses or investing in other in more properties, which gives us more income streams. So the idea is to have as many as you can, um, but you really need to understand how to set up the policies properly to be able to do
Right.
that. The other thing you need to do is make sure that you either have everything under a trust or at least a good entity structure, so that protects you as you're doing the different investments. But then if you have a permanent trust, then that gets you into the what we were talking about earlier with the generational wealth, right? Is a permanent trust. You can set up the rules inside the permanent trust the way you want, and then you teach your kids how to run it, and essentially that ends up being a place where all of your assets are producing, all of your insurance policies the beneficiary is the trust, so that it just builds on your generational wealth, and you're not splitting your assets if you pass away. They're actually building and they're continuing to grow all together because that's one of the big things about the ways that people set up and do a lot of estate planning is if they if they continue each generation split assets, that's how you can't really build the generational wealth that way.
Right.
The way you build it is generation over generation, trying to keep it together and and make sure that the your kids know how to run and teach them the financial concepts that you learned, because these are things that I learned when I was about 50 years old. If I had known these way back when, we would have been a lot better off. But that's my older son just graduated college, and he's a software engineer now, and he's like, hey, if I do the 401k, they'll match. I'm like, no, but if you put what you were going to put in the 401k into an IUL, that's going to grow. And then you already had one, get a second one. And then in a few years, you can actually cascade your premiums from one IUL to another. And what that ends up happening there is you got 100% matching, as opposed to, what are they going to match? 6, 7%? Right. And then when you have your wife and kids, the policies on them, and each policy is another 100%. So
You were being generous right there with a 6 to 7% match. I think matches right now are like 3 or 4% that
oh,
companies
okay.
are giving. Yeah, that
This
was
is
super generous.
I'm thinking of way back when they
When they were probably actually decent. Now 401k is a
but
101k.
so he's actually on that path. The other thing with that is, in a few years he can take money out of that policy and start investing in real estate. So he'll have money, and he'll have investments creating passive income. So if he wants to continue as a software engineer, he can, but he doesn't have to in order to live. And
Right.
that's essentially the idea, is being able to build up your passive income in such a way, through real estate investments, and through setting up your finances properly in such a way that it's fine if you want to do a W-2, that's great. And you enjoy it, that's also great. But don't do it just because that's the only way you can live, and that's the only way you can get pay for your food and housing and stuff. If you have all of your passive income paying for that, then you can actually do what you want when you want to. And that's the sort of definition of financial freedom, right? Is you're able to, without thought of money, do what you want when you want.
Right, right, with whoever you want for sure. And financial freedom, financial independence, what do they call it? Visionary financial freedom.
Mm,
There's a bunch of different levels to it, but at the end of the day, it's everybody's financial freedom is different from one another. It's just like, okay, what is my cost of living, and how can I make on a monthly basis, on a continuous basis,
yeah,
that monthly living without having to trade my life, dollars for hours? How can I find a vehicle investment to
right,
to take over that and to become what's called like a 100 percenter? And that's through real estate, through IULs, through infinite banking
exactly.
policies, through you know, all those investment vehicles, what you're doing.
Yeah, and there's a number. There's passive investments in real estate. There's doing real estate actively, and there's so many different ways you can do joint ventures in real estate as well if you wanted to. But there's real estate is great in that it gives you a lot of tax benefits as well. And syndications, one of the things we do is we pass that down to our investors as well. Like our last deal, in the first year, they actually got about 35, right around 34, 35% back in cost segregation,
Nice.
of what they originally invested. And that would go against any future passive earnings they get. And so, those are tax benefits you don't get in the stock market and other places like that. So.
Right. I totally agree. I'm all about Main Street investments, wealth without Wall Street, just because, the average person can make way better returns in private investments like real estate,
Hmm.
funds, syndications, through various different tax strategies, passive income, all those that nature than your traditional investments can. And if they would only just kind of get educated on these different investment vehicles, their their life and their retirements would be drastically different.
Exactly. And one of the things right now, I know, I think one of the things that I saw somewhere where it's like 80 to 90% of people are paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
If they set up their finances properly, even if they just do that, they wouldn't have to be paycheck to paycheck. So, and then then if they start taking that money and start investing, then it becomes even better. So, it's one of those. The idea is to educate as many people as you can, and that's one of the things I like doing. I like talking to people, and I like talk because once it took me a while to understand infinite banking and how insurance policies work. I think the first agent that we talked to was probably got frustrated with us because it from the time we first met him, it took us probably about a year and a half, 2 years before we actually bought the policy because we had been so ingrained in how everybody else is taught what finances should be. It's like, wait, what do you mean it'll still keep growing if I take money out of it? What are you talking about? How does that work? That doesn't, so, you know, so it took a long time for us to figure that out. And once we did, I will say this, once we started investing in real estate and once we started with the infinite banking concepts, um, in the, I'd say in the past 5 years, all the money, essentially the net worth that we had previous from my software engine, we've more than doubled it in just 5 years. Whereas it took me, what, 26, 27 years to get to where to get to that. So, these strategies work. And
Absolutely.
investing in real estate works. It's just it's a tangible property and it has a lot of benefits to invest. So,
Couldn't agree more with you. If you had one piece of advice for aspiring real estate investor or entrepreneurs that are looking to make significant impact or honestly just get started, what would it be?
I what I would talk about is find some folks that, like we talked about earlier, find folks that are experienced, that know what they're doing, and start asking them questions, whether it's joining a mastermind with them or just meeting them at meetups and then sort of following up with meetings and talking to them and just asking them about what their experience is, what they do in order to vet a sponsor for a syndication, for example, what they do to how they evaluate deals and things like that. Um, Almost every real estate investor I've met has what you call an abundant mindset and are more than happy to help others out. There are folks out there that aren't. So it's one of those things that you have to sort of you have to figure that out. But there's so many people out there that are more than willing. I know, like I just spoke at a meetup last week. And it was a meetup with house flippers. They wanted to know more about how to invest in commercial real estate. And there were so many questions. They were so interested in learning how to do it. I think I was supposed to speak for like half an hour, 45 minutes. I ended up in front of them for over an hour, um, just because of the question answer session. So it's it, and that's the way to do it is go to these meetups. And I'm sure every location, everywhere in the US, they have meetups on real estate. They have meetups on commercial real estate. If you're in Northern Virginia, I have a meetup in Northern Virginia for commercial real estate. So more than happy to talk to folks here. Actually, if they more than the QR code that gives everybody my contact information and also has a link to my calendar. Go ahead and schedule time and I'll talk to you. If you have questions and want to get educated, more than happy to talk to you. So
Awesome, Sanjay. So for listeners who want to connect with you, learn more about your work, Cascade Properties, what's the best place for them to go?
I have a website, www.cascadesps.com, or you can email me at sanjay@cascadesps.com. And on the website, there's a way to go ahead and schedule an appointment with me, or if you email me, I can send you the link to do that as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on Philly Fortune Talks. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Jake. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.